And joining me now is David Hawkins. He's the editor of the Fulcrum here in Washington, D.C. And David, you focus on issues of voting, of election security, all these big things that are in the news right now because of what we saw out of Iowa. We have another caucus coming up this weekend. And I think a lot of Americans are getting their introduction into caucuses for the first time. They may have heard about it, but the process has been gotten a lot more coverage than it traditionally has. What are some of the arguments for proponents of caucuses, why they think it's a good way to kind of go about nominating a presidential nominee?
So the arguments in favor of a caucus are it really gets the engaged voter out there, right? Because it's both the biggest argument for it, and maybe we'll talk about the biggest arguments against. But the biggest argument for it is that it gets the committed to commit. You have to go to an event. Nevada does it now a little bit differently, where there's been this early voting that's going on as we're talking about, but most Nevadans, like most Iowans, are supposed to show up in a particular place at a particular time. So it really gets the people who are so presumably educated and committed to thinking about this to actually show up and go.
And after we saw Iowa, the days-long delay in results, obviously there are a lot of arguments against this process now.
Right, and those have nothing to do, or even before you get to this question of reporting, right? With the Iowa, they cooked up this app. They cooked it up fast. They didn't test it much. It didn't work. But even before you get to that, caucuses have a lot of things to recommend against them. What I just said, you actually have to show up on a certain day. In Nevada, it's on a Saturday. If you're a working person, Saturday is not such a great day. If you're a working person and you work nights, if you're a cop or work in a hospital or work on a road crew and you live in Iowa, Monday night doesn't really work for you. It's the winter. It's dark. Old people don't like to go out, and I don't like to go out either. But that's what they say. A lot of people are reluctant to go out and vote on a dark, rainy, or snowy winter night. So it cuts down on that at exactly the same time where the big drive in voting rights is to make it easier to vote. Vote by mail. Vote in your pajamas. Vote early. Always get an absentee ballot. This goes against all of those trends.
Right. And now both parties hold caucuses, but we'll focus on the Democrats since they are in the news and they're in the heat of their nominating battle right now. The Democratic Party between 2016 and now has taken certain steps to make the process a little bit fair, to make it a proportional allocation of delegates. But they were kind of moving towards trying to eliminate or certainly reduce the power and influence of caucuses, but even before Iowa.
That's right. There are far fewer caucuses this year than there were last year or in years before that. I think they're only now down to 4 caucuses, including these first 2. Both Nevada and Iowa have had pretty remarkable staying power in recent years. Iowa, since really the 1970s, as being first in the nation, first vote, traditional first vote. I think that's all very much up in the air. I think it's pretty obvious that what happened in Iowa means they might not get to do it yet again. I wouldn't be surprised to see caucuses go away entirely the next time. All these experiments haven't worked. There's another experiment I think we should mention with Nevada, which is with these early voters.
Right.
They're being able to do what's called ranked choice voting, where they get a ballot and they can mark their first, second, third, and fourth choices. And then there's this sort of complicated computerized shuffle to reduce the number of lower finishers to just the people with 15% support.
All right, Dave, well, next week we'll talk about how either Nevada went way better than Iowa, or if it was a complete disaster. We'll talk about that as well. Hopefully that is not the case. For more stories like these, you can check out the Fulcrum at thefulcrum.us.